Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today I really want to get deep and talk about what exactly is heat training. Now, I've been heat training my hair for a few months now, and of course I'll let you know my personal thoughts and how I feel about it, if I'm going to keep doing it, if I'm going to what's the tea. But I really want to sit down and talk about heat training because when I search on YouTube, there are a few girls that are heat trained natural with lovely, luxurious long hair. But the loudest voices that you hear is heat training is the same as heat damage, it's damage, it's damage, it's damage. And that can be a little bit intimidating for someone who loves their natural hair, prefers not to dibble and dabble with chemicals and things like that, like a relaxer or a perm. But they still want the freedom to wear their hair straight if they so choose. So lots of times when we think of heat training, the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, I'm going to be repeatedly applying heat via a flat iron to my hair and I'm going to wear it straight all the time. Now that's partially true, not 100% true, especially if you want to heat train in a healthy way and still be able to retain length and actually grow your hair longer and still benefit from the manageability that heat training eventually gives you once done correctly. Now, quite similarly to chemical processing, where those chemicals in those relaxers, texturizers, whatever it is, breaks the disulfide bonds in hair, heat actually also breaks the bonds. Whereas chemicals do that permanently, heat does it temporarily. Now, it can become permanent with heat as well if you apply too much heat too frequently and you don't balance it out with proper protein moisture application to your hair. So that is something to be careful about. But the essence of heat training is not to break the bonds in your hair. We just want to soften the outermost cuticle layer of your hair. Now, what is that going to do? Now, if you know the structure of hair, it's shaped like shingles. It's like layers upon layers upon layers, like scales. The structure of completely virgin, unprocessed hair, say for example, someone with, let's say, low porosity hair. Those scales on the shaft of your hair, they're so rigid that even in the presence of moisture, it takes a while for them to lift and open up and take moisture in. The reason for the outer cuticle layer of the hair is to open and close in different conditions, to take in moisture and to lock that moisture in. Now, for example, for people with tightly coiled and curled hair, especially the 4Cs and stuff that may have extremely tough and rigid hair, those cuticle layers oftentimes are not that mobile and moisturizing your hair can become a task. So with heat training, it actually softens the outer cuticle layer of the hair, making it more flexible to take in moisture when it needs to and to seal moisture when it can. Now, once you have softened up the cuticle layer of the hair, one of the benefits you receive is that your hair becomes more resistant to the elements like high humidity and things like that. Because one thing about natural hair, you can straighten it now and it'll be looking sleek and perfect, but as soon as you get into, let's say, a steamy bathroom, all your work will be undone. So heat training your hair gets your hair accustomed to laying in that manner. So even though you're in a steamy bathroom, those cuticle layers will not lift and revert as they would normally, which makes your hair way more manageable. And side note, it does over time loosen your curl pattern, though if you don't do it that often, you can maintain the natural structure of your curls. So one of the benefits of heat training your hair is that it becomes resistant to humidity and it also becomes way more manageable. So another benefit of heat training your hair is the prevention of single strand knots. Now, every curly girl knows that our hair likes to wrap itself around each other and cause those pesky little knots and tangles. But keeping your hair in a stretched state like heat training does completely prevents that. Now, one thing I will say, because heat training in itself is one thing, but heat training without incurring extreme damage or damage period does not have much to do with the straightening process itself. It starts with what you do before you start straightening your hair. It starts from the shampoo process, the pre-poo process, and all of that. Using a good clarifying shampoo, none of that co-washing stuff, a good clarifying shampoo that is going to remove all the dirt and buildup on your strands is key to prevent like burning and frying of your strands. And your conditioner, and I suggest deep conditioning every single time before and after your flat iron. Before you flat iron, deep condition, after deep condition, because that will add the moisture your hair needs. And it's also essential to incorporate protein treatments and possibly a bond building treatment to ensure that your hair remains in tip-top shape all the way down to the molecular level. So good clarifying shampoo, condition, deep condition is a plus. Make sure you use your protein and your bond building about once a month. And please, please, please use a heat protectant. There are so many on the market that works wonders. And I do suggest to use a leave-in conditioner that has heat protecting properties, and then follow that up with a heat protectant serum, because we need some moisture in our hair before we flat iron and all of that. But you don't want to use heavy creams and butters, because that will just cause your hair to fry and child. And another major important part of the flat ironing process and preventing damage is the blow dry. You want to get a sleek, crisp blow dry before you apply the flat iron to your hair. And that really is one of the major keys. For example, I use my Rev Air. That the heat on that is pretty low, but because of the suction, it gets my hair super smooth and straight, because you really only want to do one pass of your flat iron. You do not want to do multiple passes. And if you don't blow dry your hair as sleek as possible, you will find yourself needing to do more than one passes with your flat iron. And I also suggest not to go over 430 degrees with your flat iron. More closer down to 410 is what I would recommend, especially if you're now starting out. And remember, heat training takes time. You might start this process and flat iron your hair and notice, oh, it's still puffing up, but it takes time, because your hair needs to get accustomed to being in that straight state. It needs to readjust itself and become familiar with being stretched and not curled up on itself. And if your silk press puffs up, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing. Just keep your routine consistent, and eventually your hair will become heat trained. Like it says, you are training. You don't just become something. You have to train to achieve that thing, especially if you want to do it in a healthy way where you can maintain the integrity and health of your hair. Now, I should warn you that as many benefits that heat training has, if done incorrectly, it can result in permanent removal of your curl pattern. It can result in damage and breakage and a whole bunch of bad things. That's why it's very important that you look at this as a journey. You know, it's like a marathon, not a sprint. Take your time and train your hair to stay in this straight state. And you'll see as time goes on, it will be easier and easier for you to flat iron your hair, and your straight style will last longer and longer. And now, one thing that I should mention when heat training your hair, and any natural girl knows you need to keep your hair wrapped up at night, but I do suggest wrapping your hair in that little circle wrap, because it does keep crimps and crinkles out of your hair and helps you maintain the sleek, straight look for as long as possible. Now, as you progress on the heat training journey, you need to continually treat your hair, whether you're going to be flat iron it or not. Continually treat it as if you are going to flat iron it. Make sure you use a clarifying shampoo, a nice hydrating deep conditioner. Make sure you use your leave-in conditioners, and schedule trims consistently. Don't skip out on the trims, because the ends of our hair is the oldest part, and let's be honest, just blowing in the wind, it might get a little bit split here or there. So you need to make sure you're constantly getting rid of those damaged ends when you notice it. I would recommend, if you're heat training, try to get a trim at least like 3 times a year. And I mean just a trim. If you keep avoiding your trims, you're going to end up with a cut, okay? I would also suggest incorporating steam treatments. Now you can just do that by using a shower cap on your head while you deep condition, but an actual steam treatment machine is amazing because it helps to lift and open those cuticles and pump moisture into your hair on a deeper level. You can do that at a salon professional setting. You can buy one of those steamers on Amazon for like $25. It's no big deal. If you don't want to buy it, you can even just stand in your hot steaming shower for a few minutes and let your hair steam and just soak up all of that. You can even use a facial steamer if you have one and just let it get all up in your hair. And as I mentioned before, in addition to deep conditioning and all that, protein treatments and bond building is essential. Now don't do it too often, especially the protein part, because you don't want your hair to become overloaded with protein and become hard and stiff, because that will cause breakage as well, honestly. So I would say the highest frequency with which you should be using protein treatments would be once per month. And in any case, if you're on a heat training journey, I do not recommend that you flat iron your hair more than once per month. Let that straight style last you for the entire month. You wash, do your whole routine, deep condition, cleanse, bond, build, protein, and all of that, and you flat iron again. If you can, make sure that you're putting a lot of emphasis on the deep conditioning. There needs to be a balance between moisture and protein. But in my experience, but I guess it depends on the type of hair that you have, your hair loses moisture far more quickly than it would lose the protein and stuff like that. Remember, moisture evaporates from our hair, so you need to be moisturizing your hair at least like 3 times per week. And when you wash, deep condition. Just deep condition, deep condition, deep condition, deep condition. I cannot stress that enough. That is one of the things that plays a major role in maintaining healthy hair, whether you're heat training or not. So essentially, no matter what you're doing, if you're heat training or you're taking a break from heat training, still maintain your routine, and you should be deep conditioning your hair every single time you wash it. Now, conditioner takes a minimum of 10 minutes to actually start working and seeping into your hair. So if you leave the deep conditioner on your hair for like 5 minutes, you didn't really do anything. The longer you leave it in, it will soak in and work in and do its magic all the way up to about 2 hours. After that, yeah, your hair has soaked in all it needs to soak in. There are so many benefits to heat training, and on a basic level, ideally, leaving your hair completely untouched by heat chemicals or anything would be ideal, but there are circumstances that would still incur damage on your hair in that state. For example, detangling and things like that. You can never really escape some sort of damage in whatever shape or form you're keeping your hair. It's all about trial and error of finding what works best for you, because as long as your scalp is healthy, your hair is going to continue to grow no matter what. As long as your insides are healthy, you're taking your vitamins and your supplements, your hair will continue to grow no matter what. The task then becomes retaining length. It's not even about growth, it's about retaining that length, because your hair is growing. It will always be growing unless there's a health issue involved. Your hair is still going to be growing. It's all about retaining length. So whether you decide to keep your hair in its naturally curly state all the time, your focus will now be preventing mechanical damage from combing and brushing and the crinkling and the tangles and the knots and all of that. Or if you're chemically relaxed, you know your bonds are broken, you need to make sure you are fortifying your hair as often as possible to prevent breakage. Whether you're heat training like I am, you're going to need to ensure that you're fortifying your hair and moisturizing like crazy to ensure your hair remains in tip-top shape. So that's what it basically is to heat train. If you guys have any questions that you would like to ask, feel free to leave it down below in the comments section, and I will most definitely respond to you. I always respond to all my messages unless somebody's being crazy. Okay. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and you grabbed a bit of knowledge from it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Until next time guys, bye bye.